Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about gain. We're going to talk about how to think about gain, and we're going to talk through how I want us to set up what a lot of people call our gain structure. So what is gain? So two ways to think about gain. The first way to think about gain is from the perspective of what's going on stage. And you can think about gain by thinking about a microphone. You can think about gain like a bubble of sensitivity around your microphone. The higher your gain, the bigger your bubble of sensitivity is around your microphone, and the lower your gain, the smaller your bubble of sensitivity is. You're going to be thinking about this especially if you have someone coming up to a podium and they're just talking without taking the mic. The mic is on a stand and it's kind of far away from them, and if they talk loudly, then the mic doesn't have to be as sensitive, right? Because they're talking loud enough for the mic to pick them up. If they talk kind of softly, then the mic sensitivity needs to be more, so their gain needs to be up more. You can be thinking about this with things like a funeral where lots of different people are coming up to a podium with a stationary mic, or even announcements on a Sunday morning. But you can think about gain in terms of sensitivity of a microphone. You're also going to think about gain this way when we talk about feedback. Feedback is what we get when the mic picks itself up in the speakers. It's sensitive enough to hear itself in the speakers. And so if you're getting feedback, then the mic is too sensitive and you need to turn down gain. You maybe need to turn down the fader, or maybe you even need to move the mic so that it can't pick itself up in the speaker. The other way to think about gain is from the perspective of the soundboard. And from this perspective, I want you to think about gain like a floodgate or a faucet. And you're going to think about the signal from whatever input you've got going on as the flood or the water trying to get through your floodgate. So this floodgate or this faucet of gain is able to let signal in by opening or by raising the gain, and it's able to kind of keep signal out or to limit or regulate the flow of signal into the soundboard. Every input has a signal that it's trying to push into the soundboard. All of your microphones have their own signal. Every instrument has its own signal, and they're all trying to push signal into the soundboard. And your gain is the control on how much signal you're allowing into your soundboard. Remember, your gain is your floodgate, your faucet, and its job is to regulate the amount of signal you want coming into your soundboard. The more gain you have, the more open the floodgate is. And this means that you're letting more signal into your soundboard. If your gain is low, your floodgate is more closed and you're letting less signal into your soundboard. Okay, so two ways to think about gain. From the perspective of the stage, you're thinking about gain as the sensitivity of your mics. From the perspective of the soundboard, you're thinking about gain like the floodgate or the faucet that's regulating how much signal gets in or stays out. So now let's talk about gain on the soundboard. Your gain section is in the top left corner of your soundboard. And the only things that I want you to worry about here are the gain knob and the gain meter. There's other things that you can do, but I don't want you to worry about that stuff. Each channel has its own gain control. In the way that we are thinking about things, each channel has its own floodgate. So the floodgate that's controlling channel 1 is different from the floodgate that's controlling channel 2 and channel 3 and so on. So what that means is that to change the gain on a channel, you have to select that channel. If you don't select that channel and you're trying to change its gain, then you're probably changing the gain on a different channel and you're just jacking stuff up. For example, if channel 9 needs more gain and I'm over here messing with the gain knob, nothing's happening on channel 9. Everything's happening on channel 1, and I'm just messed up channel 1 big time. One thing that you're going to notice on each channel is that each channel, every channel also has its own meter, its own gain meter. Now, this meter and this meter are measuring the same thing. They're both measuring gain or signal strength, how much signal your floodgate is letting through. This meter is just physically smaller than this meter, and so they have different numbers going on here. This one starts at -60 and goes to -30, -18, -12, -6. This one up here is longer, so they're able to fit more numbers on it, and it starts at -30, -18, -12, -9, -6, -3. So this one just has more numbers on it than this one does, but they're both measuring the same thing. One of the things that you're going to notice about these meters is that we have green lights, we have yellow lights, and we have a top red light right there. Okay? Green and yellow are great. We're happy with green and yellow. We like the green and yellow lights. We can live with green and yellow. Red is bad. Red is what we don't want. When the signal gets into red, we call that clipping. And that's when the signal starts to distort and sound like garbage. Now, red is not a crisis moment. If you're seeing this, it's not a crisis. You don't have to panic. You don't have to freak out. But we don't want red. So we're going to need to change something on this channel to get the red off of there. Yellow doesn't necessarily mean what a yellow light does. All right? It doesn't necessarily mean, hey, slow down, you need to get out of yellow. Yellow just means, hey, just be aware that you're getting a little close to red. That's okay, as long as you're not in the red. But just be aware that your red might come a little soon. Now let's talk about what a lot of folks call a good gain structure. We can say we have a good gain structure when we've set the gain on each channel so that we have a good, strong signal without clipping on each channel that we let into the board through our different floodgates. All right, so we're going to walk through how I want you to create a good gain structure, and then I'll sprinkle in here why it matters. First, I want you to turn everything off. I want all of your faders to be zeroed out. All right, take them all down. Go ahead and take your DCAs down. Go ahead and take your mains all the way down, and go ahead and make sure that any monitors that you're using are down. This is what I'm using for this video, so we're going to leave that one up. But make sure your monitors are off, all of your faders are zeroed out, your mains are zeroed out, your DCAs are zeroed out. Start with a clean slate with nothing coming through your speakers. And the reason is because gain right now doesn't have anything to do with volume. You don't need to hear anything to have a good gain structure. So right now, gain has everything to do with the meters that we're seeing. Just the meters. Right now, all we care about are the meters. When we've zeroed everything out, we're going to start pulling signal now into the board, which means that we need the band to play and the singers to sing. And it's important right here to make sure that your band and your singers are playing at performance intensity, because you want to try to reproduce the amount of signal that they're going to try and push into the board. If you've got someone on stage and they're just speaking into their mic and they're really soft and they're saying check 1, 1 2 1 2 check 1, that's not going to give you a good read, because once they begin singing, it'll be much louder. There will be a lot more intensity going on there. So you want performance intensity. Now, there are a couple ways that you could go about asking the band to give you that performance intensity. One way is to go input by input. You could go channel by channel. You could say, mic 1, sing for me. Then set your gain. Mic 2, sing for me, set your gain. Acoustic, play for me, set your gain. Bass, play for me, set your gain, and so on. You can do that. You just have to make sure that they understand you want them to be singing or playing at performance intensity. Or another way that you could do this is if you've already got a little gain on some of your channels so that they can hear in the monitors. If you've already got some gain on your channels, you could have the whole band play and the singer sing. You could have them just play a song. They're not going to hear very well, and you need to tell them, hey, that's okay. That doesn't matter right now. I'm setting your gain. And while they perform their song, then you can go and set the gain. But the key here is you want performance intensity on each of these channels. So however you do that, make it happen. So once you're putting signal into the board, you can see that we've got our signal coming into the board now. You want to go channel by channel and start getting the gain where you want it to be. And where I want us to let our gain kind of sit at is on the little meters between 18 and 12. On the big meter between 18 and 12. All right. So if you have your gain and your signal is sitting at about 18 consistently, and every now and again it gets up to a 12, that's a good place to be. And you're going to do that for each channel. Now, don't be OCD about this. Don't be super concerned that, oh my goodness, I got up to a 6. That's okay. Just get it to where you feel comfortable that it's about at 18 or 12, and you're good. You're good. Leave it there. So the reason we choose kind of 18 and 12 is that it's kind of in the middle of our meter. And the reason we want that is because if something happens during the song where it gets way more intense than at other parts of the song, then we are giving the signal a little more headroom before it begins to clip. We're also not so low that we've got no signal coming in to mess with on our fader. So between 18 and 12 is really where I want your signal to be on each of your channels. Now let's go through and do this. So channel 1, you can see channels 2 through 5 we're not really using here, but channel 1 is a little low. So he's sometimes getting up to where I want him to be. In fact, I may just leave him there. Here, I'm going to select this guy and probably bring this one up a little bit so that we're getting consistent yellows there. You can see that he's getting consistent 8 and 12. This yellow one up here means compression. Don't worry about that right now. That's not playing into our gain for right now. This one is consistently getting about 18. I want to give it a little more so that it's hitting 12 a little more often. This guy seems to be a little happy, so we're going to bring him down a freckle so that he's not hitting 12 quite as often. You can see that this guy is about where I want him to be. He's consistently 18, getting to 12 every now and again. This one is way too high. You can see here that we are consistently clipping. So I'm going to select that one and I'm going to bring it down until we are getting a solid 18 and a 12 every now and again. There we go. We're not clipping anymore. There we go. Solid 18 with a consistent 12. This one we're getting an 18 most of the time, but still not great. So I want him to give me a 12 every now and again. There we go. This guy is a little low. He's not getting me any yellows. He's not even getting up to negative 18. So we're going to bring this one up to where he's consistently giving me an 18 and then maybe every now and again getting me a 12. One cool thing about setting your gain up like this is that it makes every channel hitting at about the same place on the meter. Now, if you notice during rehearsal that you've got a channel that does clip every now and again, go ahead and select it and bring it down a little bit. Go ahead and nudge that one down, that gain down a little bit to avoid that. Not a big deal, but don't go crazy. The goal is that prior to the band rehearsing, the goal is that your gain structure would be basically set. If you find that during the rehearsal set you've got something consistently clipping, go ahead and nudge that gain down. Now, when we've set the gain for all of the channels, we're going to start mixing the house. Now is when you can start bringing, letting the signal get from your board into the speakers. So we're going to go ahead and bring up our mains to maybe -10, maybe -5. I'm going to bring it up to -5. We're going to go ahead and bring our DCAs up to about -5. And now we're going to start slowly bringing up your faders until they are where you want them to be. The way I like to mix things is I like to start with the lead instrument. In our case, it's the acoustic. And I'm going to slowly bring the acoustic up until I can hear it in the room well enough. And there's no feedback. There's no issues there. And I'm going to bring it up to where I like it. And then I'm going to build the other instruments around it. The lead instrument is the one that the folks need to be hearing most. It doesn't need to be overpowering, but it needs to be a little bit above everything else. Same thing, after I've done that, it's the same thing with our lead vocalist. So the lead vocal is usually the red. So I'm going to bring the red up to where it's nice and good. It's over top of the instruments and I can hear it well. And then I'm going to start bringing in my harmonies. And you can start bringing back in your monitors. For us, I like to mix the monitors down on stage when I'm down there. A couple tips for you before we're done. The first is that every time you move the gain, you're messing with someone's monitor. The way that we have our board set up, every time you move the gain, you're messing with someone's monitor. Whether it's the floor monitors on the stage or the in-ear monitors through the P16, if you're moving the gain, you're jacking stuff up for the people on the stage. That's why it's super important to get your gain structure set and to never touch it ever again. Maybe a little bit if you've got something clipping, but not much. The important thing is to get your gain structure set and try not to touch it anymore throughout the rest of the morning, throughout the rest of the service. Because every time you touch the gain, it's going to affect the monitors on stage. So you don't want to do that. The other tip is that with the gain set the way that it is, your faders may not go up as high as you normally had them in the past. Some of you may be running your faders way up here. And if they don't get up there because it would just blow your speakers out and blow the people's eardrums out, that's okay. If your main level is pretty high and the signal strength on your channels are pretty strong, pretty good, your faders may be up just a little bit, and that's okay. When it comes to mixing the house sound, we aren't slaves to the numbers on the faders, okay? We get our gain set with the meters, and then we use our ears to slowly raise the faders until the sound is where we want it to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be that they are the same place every set. It doesn't have to be that way. We're raising the faders based on the sound that we hear. And maybe the key word here is you're raising the faders slowly. Raise the faders slowly until you nudge right up against the sound that you want. If you find that you're getting feedback, the first thing that you should probably do is ease your fader back down a bit. And if you find that you just can't get your feedback under control with your faders, then go to your gain and nudge it down just a smidge. But remember, every time you nudge your gain down, you're messing with the monitors. Try to get your feedback under control with your faders first. That's all I've got for you today. Be blessed.